Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to Monday Night Live with your girl Denise Joy. Welcome to my channel. If you are new to my channel, make sure you subscribe. I'm so happy you decided to join me for a really quick live demo. I've been doing these Monday Night Lives as a special request. Drop in the chat, let me know what state you are joining me from. I'm on the East Coast in the DMV area. I am joining you from my YouTube studio. So I just move things around. Normally, if you're catching my Wednesday wind down Wednesday show, Design Love, I'm usually behind this desk here, but I moved everything around so that I could set up a demo. I've been getting a couple of requests of just how to do things, and so I have a bunch of stenciling. Well, I don't say I have a bunch. I have several stenciling videos. And on one of my Design Loves, folks asked about stenciling. They asked about wallpaper. And so I said, all right, we will do the next Monday Night Live will be about stenciling. So I'm going to go through what kinds of materials you need, some tips, some best practices, things that I've learned. And if you want to see me actually stenciling some furniture or some walls, I have a couple of videos on my channel specific to doing stenciling. In fact, this accent wall, this Cuba cloth inspired accent wall used to be a stencil. It actually used to be the stencil on this board right here. And I have a video of that, me actually doing that work. So you can check those out. So again, thanks so much for joining me. Let's get to it. So stenciling is a really super impactful DIY project that you can do. It can take a bit of time, but with some imagination and some patience and just setting things up well, you can really make a huge difference in any space or on a piece of furniture. I have done both stenciled walls, stenciled furniture, and just got a huge impact and a wow factor from just a little bit of effort. So first things first, I am Denise Joy. I am a designer, an artist, and the creator of the Furaha method of joyful design. And Furaha means joyful in Swahili. And I'm just so excited that you guys again chose to join me. Make sure you share this video so that your friends and family who enjoy DIY and enjoy interior design, that they can get some of the good stuff, no fluff too. All right, first things first, you need to have some gloves, okay? You can get gloves like this, packs of them, like 5 or even 10 packs at your big box store. I have so many of these gloves, and it's just great so you can protect your hands because you are going to be working with paint. And so you want to have a pair of gloves that you prefer. You don't need the plastic gloves, like, dishwashing gloves. You really want something that's going to allow your hands to be very nimble. You also need a stencil. I have this stencil already taped on this board here. I'll bring it a little closer so you can see it up close, get my glare from my lights. You need a stencil. You can get stencils darn near anywhere. This stencil came from Etsy, but you can I've ordered stencils online from like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You can get a stencil from anywhere from $5 to $100, okay? I wish I could remember what this stencil costs, but when this video is over and I upload it as an actual video, I'll put in the show notes what the link to get this, the link to get this, so you can really see what this is all about. So you'll need a stencil, and I always recommend practice first. So this is just an old cabinet door that I use to test paint on. I'll just show you the other side. So I actually test paint colors on this old cabinet door to see what a color would look like. And it's great for practicing, such a hard surface for practicing stenciling. If you don't have an old cabinet like I do, you can use a piece of cardboard. Get a piece of cardboard. Try not to get one with the folds in it, but if you do, just make sure it's laying flat, and you can practice, tape your stencil down on here and practice away. I even have a video showing how I stenciled a concrete area in my back patio, and to start out, I used a piece of cardboard to practice on because, you got to get your practice in. So you need some gloves, you need a stencil. And then you need to select your paint. For today, I'm just going to use this dark color, some leftover paint that I have because we're just doing a demo here. But of course, you would want to pick something that's going to contrast nicely and contrast well. So, well, you know, contrast is relative. For example, you could do a white or gray paint, like that's your wall color, and then do a really bold, like if this was a, let's say this was a gray, a light gray, we could do a very dark gray, almost charcoal, to really make this stencil pop. But I've also done some stenciling. I have a little unusual nook. I have a 1925 bungalow, and in the area where the refrigerator is, it's still designed like the old style ice box. So anyway, there's a area above, and I decided to give it some energy. So I did a gray on gray. So I did a light gray wall with just a touch lighter gray stencil, and people think it's wallpaper. People always think that it's wallpaper. So you don't always have to do a super bold contrast, just as an FYI. You know, if you are looking to create a certain aesthetic and vibe, just keep that in mind. But for our purposes this evening, I just got some really contrasting leftover paint to use. Here's some other supplies that you are going to need. These are rollers, and I like to use these smooth rollers. They come in a contractor's pack of 5. These are for cabinets and doors. You know, I like to use this, particularly if you're going to be painting on furniture, like let's just say this cabinet door, let's say that's furniture, but you're not limited to this one right here. And you also are going to need a tray. This little tray, these littles, they're actually designed to fit this roller. And I have the let me get myself together here. I already loaded up one with some paint. And so these are designed to fit right in these little trays. Okay, so you don't necessarily want to get the big giant tray if you're watching live, or if you're watching the replay. You want to get these, and they fit nicely here. They really come in handy. And some options of other things that you can use. Well, before I get to that, you also need some painter's tape. I like to use this green painter's tape, particularly when stenciling. It's just stronger. The blue painter's tape I find to be good when I'm painting a wall and I want to do some edging. But this green painter's tape, it just sticks, and you really want to make sure you get your stencil flat. Okay. Although I sometimes cheat, you'll see me doing that in my videos. You don't necessarily want to cheat, but if you feel comfortable doing it, when I say cheat, sometimes I will hold down and I will paint, put the paint on the stencil. Now, in addition to your roller, okay, this is a 6-inch. I think these are 6-inch rollers. Yeah, in addition to your rollers, there are tools called stippling brushes, and a stippling brush is basically it's an artist brush, but it's short. It's short, and see how the bristles are really short, and they're thick. They're really thick. So you would load paint on, and you would tap it in. That's stippling, tap it into the area. But you wouldn't put a lot of paint on here. And that's the number one thing I want you to remember to avoid doing, which is overloading your roller, or overloading your stippling brush, or overloading my absolute favorite that I love to use, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But these are 3 different size stippling brushes. This one is the small, this one is the thickest, and this one has the longest. And you would just use this with a lighter touch, because when you put the stippling brush on the surface, the tips are going to spread. So you don't want to put a lot of pressure. You don't want to mash it down, because then you would get a lot of spread and you would not have a lot of control of the paint. That's really what you're after with stenciling. You want to control how much paint you're going to put on the surface. Oh, I actually have 2 more things to show you. There's also this convenient sponge on a stick. And this can give you good control as well. And so you would dab a little paint on the tip here. And again, you would just dab it lightly on. And I'll go through and show you each of these once we get to the section where I'm actually going to do some stenciling work. But my favorite of all that I love is the organic sponge. I just think these are phenomenal. Okay. Now they do require a bit of control and sensitivity to how much paint is in them and how much water and that kind of thing. But I love them. This one is my favorite one. It's a little rough around the edges because I use it a lot. But in fact, I've never even used this one. So this one's fresh. I can cut this in half and make it smaller. But you get a lot of control here because you can dab your paint in there and control the line. Okay. Um, if you have any questions, I'm just going off of because I do this all the time. Put them in the chat, put them in the comments. I will respond to the best of my ability. And last week, someone said, "Can I email you?" And I said, "Sure, you can. You can email me heart HART heart of the cell at gmail.com. Heart, HART of the SELL at gmail.com. You just have a question, but drop it in the chat in the comments section. And I promise to get to it. And okay, so now, you also want like a towel or a rag of some sort to, wipe your hands. You want some water nearby. This is just an old. My son loves to get these iced teas every time he gets them, I grab them because they're great for using as a water cup whenever I'm working with paint. You also want some newspaper because you're going to want to do what we call roll off when you're on your roller, or even with your sponges. You want to dab a lot of the paint off. The key to stenciling is you don't want a lot of paint on the tool that you're going to use to put to put on top of the stencil. You want it to be really light because you actually want to layer the color on in layers, 1, 2 to 3, even maybe 3, depending upon how much color saturation you want. You might end up doing 3 layers. And so for tonight, for this demo, I'm going to be moving quickly, and I'm going to try to use this and use each of the different tools in the different sections and kind of lift up the side and show you as we go so that you can see how they all work. Again, if you have a question, drop it in the chat. If you're just joining me, this is Monday Night Live with your girl, Denise Joy, designer, artist, and creator of the Furaha method of joyful design. And Furaha means joyful in Swahili. I'm going to make sure I'm not forgetting anything before I jump right in. Oh, I knew it was something. Now, you'll also need this right here. This is called Crud Cutter. Okay, this is very important, particularly to cleaning your stencil. Once you've finished, you want to clean that stencil, clean it off. Crud Cutter, concentrated cleaner, degreaser, stain remover. It just cuts straight through and helps you get that paint off. And there are other products out there. That's just the one that I like to use, and I highly recommend that. You either I have my studios in my basement, my art studios in my basement, my YouTube studio. So I just use my wash basin, but I also have like a clear plastic container that I lay the stencil in and spray it down. And I have a little brush that I lightly scrub it with. Also, the stencil is really tough. Stencils are not super tender. So the one thing I want to caution you about is you do not want to get a fold in your stencil, because otherwise it'll be tough to make it lay flat as you need it to on a piece of furniture or on a wall. You want to really be mindful to lay these, or once you finish with them, you can even roll them up, and actually that's how it was mailed to me, in a roller. You keep the container that it was mailed to you in and just slide it back in there. All right, good people, let's jump in here. And I want to keep you too long, but I do want to get through each of the different ways in which you can apply stenciling. So let's start out with the stippling brush, okay? So I'm just going to do this corner down here. And let me tape this down because I want it to be flat as possible. Oh, see, I got a little buckle in there. That's not flat as I want it. Yep. So we want it to be flush and flat. Okay, let me try to move it. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Now the stippling brush. Okay. Let me lean that there. Let me get my newspaper. So I'm going to put just a little water on my brush and some paint. Okay. So I got my paint loaded up on the brush, and you see how that's on there. So I'm actually going to just do some practice on this newspaper. And so I'm just putting pressure and pecking away at it so that I can see how much paint is in there and how much control I'm going to have. So I'm going to do this lower corner right here with the stippling brush. Okay, this is the number one, the first apparatus, and we have a couple more. So I'm just going to do this lower part down here. Okay, so I'm just tapping lightly here. I'm going to put a little more paint. Okay, so that would be our first layer using the stippling brush. Let's see how it, let's cross our fingers. Okay, we got our first layer using that stippling brush. And we got our first line there. So if we were going to keep using that particular application tool, you would just go back. I forgot to put my gloves on too. I normally would have had my gloves on first. You would go back a couple of times, and I would suggest letting it dry in between, and you would stipple that away and layer that up. Okay, so I want to take some of this paint off in here. So I'm just going to dab this off, clean it up. All right, next up, we're going to use the roller. All right, so the roller, I'm going to get your pan. You got your paint in there. Get your paint on here and just roll it. That takes some of the paint off. The little dots in the pan are there to take some of the paint off of the roller. But that might not be enough, right? You've ever used these rollers? A roller can absorb a lot of paint. And what you want to avoid is you want to avoid too much paint on the roller because you don't want the paint to bleed underneath the stencil and make it look fuzzy. And you want it crisp. So I always roll off. So see how much paint came off when I rolled it off? Just roll it off to get some of that paint off. And then let's cross our fingers. So I'm going to do this triangular bottom section here using the roller. And so how can I do this? You're going to put the roller at an angle and just lightly push into the stencil and roll it down. Roll it down. My roller is not rolling here. I think I might need a new roller, but I think yeah, there was good. That's good. There we go. Roll it up. Now let's see how that looks. Hopefully I didn't get a lot of bleed. No, marvelous. So you see I was after this section. Let me pull it a little closer. You can see it. You can see how crisp that is. Now that's just the first layer, okay? We would leave this down. You could peel it up just to take a quick peep And when you do that, make sure that you put that tape back, this one here rolled up, so that it goes back and it's even. And you could move up and do other sections, right? If you had a larger stencil, this is just a smaller version of a larger stencil. And come back and do a second coat. I would say anywhere from about 45 seconds to a minute, just to give it a chance to let it dry, and then do another layer on there. So we're gonna let it dry just a tad, and we're gonna come back and do another layer. And remember, these trays are designed to hold your paint. Do your roll off, but don't rely on them, because you want to roll some of that extra paint off using some newspaper. You can even use some cardboard to roll off. But the thing is to get some of that extra paint off, because otherwise, when you press on the furniture or the wall, that extra paint is going to go bleeding and mushing all under the stencil, and you don't want that. You want your paint to be very crisp and stay in the lines. It's kind of like coloring inside the lines. All right, so I think that's enough time. We're going to give it one more pass here. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to put this at an angle, not flat, kind of at an angle here. Press lightly and roll it down. Right? We're not mashing it in and we're just doing it lightly and letting it roll down. Just a couple of times here. Okay? Let's see if we got any darker saturation on this pass. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You see that? Can you see that? I'm kind of proud of myself. So the roller, you can get great control with a roller. But remember, practice. That's what we're doing here. This demo is to help you learn some of the techniques, see them in action, so that you can have the courage to go for it and practice. Get a piece of cardboard. I know you got some Amazon packages that are either coming or they already came. Open those babies up, break down the cardboard, order everything's on sale right now. It's President's Day weekend. Michael's, I don't have any relationship with any of these stores. Order you something or go into a store, get you just a general. So I use this stencil because I feel that something with these straight lines, it's really easy to start out with something with straight lines. You might not feel that way. You might feel like you need a flower or something with some curves in it. But you can, and I'm going to show you in a minute another stencil. But I use this one as the demo because I feel like these straight lines, it's sort of, you can really follow the pattern of those straight lines. And you might disagree, but make sure that you practice. Okay. Let's move to the sponge. Okay, the sponge on a stick. These come in painting packs. You can buy packs of these. You can buy packs of these with other artist brushes and even the stippling brushes that I showed you earlier. So we're going to start out. We're just going to load this up with just a little bit of paint. All right. Now, the thing about this is, just like that roller, this sponge on a stick is going to absorb a lot of paint. So you want to make sure you dab some of that paint off. Or another cool thing about these is that these trays have this I love this little part on the back because it holds your tools when you are using multiple tools. So kind of dab it off. I might have dabbed too much off, but let's see if, let's do this first line right here. So making sure that the stencil is flush, flat. We're just going to press using the tip. And I like this because you can get a lot of control. I mean, it's almost like holding a pencil and it's wide. The stippling brush requires a little more finesse. Okay, let's see. Then we get good control. Let's pull this one up. There, I got a little bleed here because I didn't have this. I got a little bleed there. Now, some people say, it's perfectly imperfect, live with the imperfections. It's not a huge amount, and when you get an entire wall, I have this stencil done on my bathroom wall, which there's a video demo of oh gosh, I wish I could remember. Small bathroom. It's a small bathroom video. I redid my entire bathroom, and this is painted in the on the as an accent wall. So once you get an entire wall with all of the pattern, quote unquote, you don't necessarily notice imperfections when they're small like this. So don't beat yourself up. I've done this many times, and you still, and I'm kind of looking at it sideways too. So I give myself some grace. Now, let's move to my favorite applicator, which is the organic sea sponge. I just love it. Okay. So I always make sure that I fully get the entire sponge damp. It's all wet, the entire thing. Okay. Because you want that paint to be able to go into this sponge. There's lots of cracks and crevices in here in this organic sponge, and I just love the control that I get using this. All right, so you're just going to dab it. Hold this up here so y'all can see. You're going to dab it in your paint, load it up. I didn't put a whole bunch on there, okay? Didn't put a whole bunch on there because remember, the it's going to absorb it. Okay. So I'm going to do this triangle up here at the top. So I'm just holding it, and I kind of pinch it and make it tight so that I can really control it. And then I just dab it. Now yeah, I'm going to just hold it. This is what I meant by cheating earlier. Sometimes even if I have this on the wall and I've taped it down, I might have a section that's not taped in, and I'll just press it with my hand. So I'm just going to dab it in there. And I'm doing it from the side. I can't necessarily say. I like this too because I feel it gives me more of like an artistic element to. But that was the look I was after in that bathroom. So it kind of feels almost like a pastel, like I'm using pastels as an artist. All right, so let's peel this down and see. Oh, let me get this out of the light. So you see that came very nice, very sharp, very crisp. Not as much color saturation as see down below there with the roller, but also that roller had two, actually those are two different colors also. The roller is a darker brick red, and the one that I'm using on the right with the stippling is a lighter color. So you still get great control with that sponge. I just wanted to show that. I like that. Now, when I did the bathroom that I'm referencing, I used the sponge for tight corners, like if I had to get into a corner of a wall, and I mostly used the roller. But when I got like to the top edge and I didn't want to hit the ceiling, I didn't want to run the risk of running that roller up, then I took and instead used my handy dandy sea sponge. Okay. So I suggest, none of these are hugely expensive. So you can invest in, one or two of these, get you a pack of stippling brushes. They come in a pack typically. They even come larger than this, 2-3 times wider than this, stippling brushes. And also the 6-inch rollers and the tray, and you also have to purchase this. Now, these come in a pack though. Let me point this out. You could buy this tray, this handle, and 2 of these rollers will come in one pack, and that way is a cost savings. And then you can try this out for yourself and just see how it goes. I love it. I love to stencil, as evidenced by how often I'm stenciling. I stenciled in my DIY Duo Season 1. I did a basement transformation from a basement to a college dorm. It was the beginning of the pandemic, and the family wanted their daughter, who was at Harvard and had to come home, to feel like she had a college dorm. So I used this stencil in a band on a wall in her new college dorm basement and on the top of a dresser. So I did furniture and a wall. So that's a great one to check out to see both stenciling on furniture and stenciling on a wall. But again, these are not hugely expensive. You can get some of these natural organic sponges. I think I even ordered this pack off of Amazon. I mean, it maybe was like $3 or $4. And you know, you're just not going to spend a ton of money. And like I said, for practicing purposes, you're going to practice on some cardboard. Okay, so our final example here, this is a different stencil. Now, this stencil, well, let me talk about where can you stencil. I mentioned earlier that I stenciled on a concrete pad area in my patio. I used a special paint for that. You want to use concrete outdoor paint. And then I actually redid that area and used a like a granite like paint, and it turned out so amazing. I just can't wait to have an outdoor soiree this spring summer because it's gorgeous. So you can stencil on outdoor areas. You can stencil on walls. These are cinder block walls in my unfinished basement. And as I said, prior to me putting that Cuba cloth accent wall inspired accent wall, this stencil was on that wall. You can stencil on cinder block cement walls. You just have to prepare the surface properly. You can you can stencil on really any wall surface. You can stencil even on brick, like if you want to do on your fireplace. Now that's just going to take a little more attention to detail and care, but it can be done. Okay. You can get a huge wow factor. You can do multiple colors in stenciling. Leslie Nesbitt is a phenom in the stenciling world. And actually, the very first stencil that I owned, she gifted to me. I was so honored. And but she's a pro at stenciling in multiple colors, how you layer in, etc. You obviously, if we were going to stencil in multiple colors, actually, I think I have enough of 2 different colors. We can do a little bit. Yeah, hopefully it'll work out. So anyway, you can stencil in so many places. You can stencil on furniture, the fronts of wood furniture. You can even stencil with the right paint on metal. So stenciling can take you a long way. All right. Hey, let's big ups for the stencil. Okay, so I'm going to show you all this particular stencil, and I'm going to use the roller. All right, let me get my gloves on. Y'all digging this? Let me know in the chat. Oh, hey, Lane, you make it look easy. Listen, you should go for it. Honey, honestly, I'm always looking for stuff to stencil, okay? I went thrifting the other day. I got some cute, gorgeous baskets, the baskets that you put on the wall and stuff like that. Oh my God, felt like I hit the lottery. But I was looking for some adequate furniture that I said, something that I could stencil and maybe put in someone's home that I'm going to be working on this client. So we'll see, but I think you should go for it. Absolutely. Hopefully these tips if they're valuable, let me know in the comments in the chat if they're valuable to you. And if you have a question, just let me know. I will do my best. Okay. So now this is a larger stencil. In fact, I even kind of folded it. I didn't bend it. I folded it at the end so that I could get it on this board so I could use it as an example. Stencils come in all kinds of sizes too, y'all. Okay. And I ordered this stencil. This came in a medium and a large. I ordered the largest because I wanted my work to go quicker. Also on a stencil, you can line up. There will be directions on the stencil to help you line up a piece. And so on this one, it would be these corners right here that you would line them up so that the stencil continues to repeat appropriately. Because the last thing you want to do is have the stencil not look like it's all lined up. In fact, when I was painting the stencil in my bathroom redesign, I stepped back, which you also want to do, step back to make sure everything is, lining up. I realized that it was starting to get a little crooked. Oh, you should have seen me fixing that baby. First, I dropped a few little F-bombs, to be honest with y'all. But I said, okay, First, I took a break. Honestly, I went and got something to drink. And then I came back and, I had to step back and I said, okay, how can I camouflage this? And nobody notices it now but me. So, these things can't happen to the best of us. All right. So let's use our roller again. Load your roller up with some paint. Make sure you roll some of that off. Use your newspaper to, again, also I want to caution you, don't use something that has some type of material when you roll off the paint, because you don't want to get those fibers in your roller or your sponge or whatever. I have found that newspaper works well. There's no fibers or anything, I think initially I tried to use a paper towel, but once the paper towel got saturated with the paint, it kind of like, it was starting to clump up. And so disaster. Learn from my mistakes. Don't use a paper towel. So I'm rolling off some of the paint here. And let me get my little stand here so I can make this higher. I want you to be able to see as I'm doing this. Okay, so I am going to, this is not as flat, and I use this on purpose because I found that when I used this large oversized, I had to do a lot of, I had to do my rolling in smaller sections, okay? And also because I have it on this clipboard, it's not as flat, because if it was on the wall, I would have this baby taped down. And I'll show you a little example. Here's a little trick. I actually also taped it down in the middle so that I didn't just tape the edges of the stencil. I'm taping the middle, and I probably could have taped here and here so that it really is flat so you don't get it bleeding through. So anyway, for the purposes of our demo, let me just go for it. And again, it's a little awkward because I'm at an angle I normally wouldn't be. I would really be in the front angling down this way, but I'm going to go this way so that you all can see and I can get it done. So we're going to put a little pressure. Now you notice that I didn't roll back. I'm going to roll only in one direction. So where I started, I'm going to pick back up. I'm going to put a little pressure and I'm going to go that way. I'm not going to roll back and forth on the stencil. Why? Because if you roll back and forth, you're likely to get that paint bleeding back under the edge of the stencil when you roll it back. You just want to go one direction, okay? Let's check and see how did that go. Let's see if I can go from the bottom here. I kind of got this baby bolted down because I didn't want it to move. Oh, my green tape. I love that green tape. I think I mentioned that over the blue. Oh, I'm going to have to take the whole thing off. There's no problem. Oh, very nice. You see that? Very nice. Very crisp. Very crisp edges. And that's what you want. You don't want to roll back and forth. People make that mistake thinking, oh, I'm going to get a lot of paint and it'll be fast. That's another thing. You don't want to try to do it fast. You just want to work with the stencil, do a section, roll in one direction, and be patient, and you can get it all done. In fact, I'll do a little bit more on here. Let me try to actually do the whole thing. Let's see here. All right, we'll start on this corner and just go in one direction. This is a little bit, again, this is moving a little bit because I don't have it taped all the way down, but I think I got enough on here so you can see how that turned out. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. So painting in one direction. Let me try to get out of that light. There we go. I think we're good there. Paint in one direction. Press your roller, go in one direction, okay? Don't go, this is a no-no. Don't go back and forth. Do not go back and forth like this. Go Go one and then lift your roller off. One, lift your roller off. Press light and lift your roller off. And it will just take a few test times for you to get the rhythm and the pressure right. But it's better to practice on a piece of cardboard than practice on your wall or practice on your furniture, because then you're likely to, lose your confidence and say, oh, I messed it up and blah, blah, blah. Listen, like I said, I had a few little perfectly imperfects in that bathroom and ended up with that little section that was going crooked, and I had to step back and figure out how I could fix it, but it can be done. So that is the live demo for Monday Night Live tonight. I'm so excited that y'all joined me. Crud Cutter, again, I would just take this over to the sink area, spray it down, which I actually am going to do. Make sure you clean your brushes and everything. In fact, I've been dropping stuff in my water jug so that everything is already kind of soaking out. And a quick tip, if you want to save your paint, like you say, oh, I started it and then I'm not going to finish it, you can take a piece of plastic. I have these big plastic sheets, but you can just use 2 or 3 plastic bags from a grocery store if you still use those, and slide your paint in there. For this, I would just fold this in this plastic, and I would really just put a towel over the top of it. And that will keep I would really wrap it with the towel, but that will keep your paint fresh for, really you could probably do it for about 2 days if you do it well and don't get any air in there. And that way, if your project is taking you a little bit longer, you're not having to throw paint away and, so on and so forth. So awesome. I'm so glad you guys joined me. I had so much fun. I'm totally feeling Monday Night Lives. Leanne, or no, I keep saying Leanne. It's Lane. I'm so sorry. And I hope I'm saying your name correctly. You asked for wallpaper. So guess what? I'm going to do the next Monday Night Live. We'll be doing wallpaper. I have some leftover grass cloth. I also have some peel and stick wallpaper that I used in a redesign for a college student. He wanted this funky accent wall in an apartment, and it's an apartment, so we had to use peel and stick wallpaper. So it's really cool. So we're going to do that. And remember, Monday Night Live is every other Monday. So the next one is March 7th. All right. So if you have a burning desire, you're like, oh, I hope she do Monday Night Live on, boom, let me know. Drop it in the comments, in the chat, and I'll make it happen. Y'all have an awesome and safe night. And remember, you are the designer of your life. You're in charge. Go be great. Good night, everybody.